ACES High Offline Mission Editor Tutorial, Part 13, Managing Your Collection of Mission Groups. If you write a lot of missions, as I have, you will eventually develop a collection of them. And there are some things you ought to know about making your new missions work well with your existing collection without conflicts. And it turns out that if you've been following along this set of tutorials and doing the things I've done, you've created a little problem for yourself that I want to illustrate right now. Let's go over to our mission editor. This is the familiar situation of our mission editor. In these tutorials, we've been spending our time on this mission collection named test01.mis. We made this new collection, and remember, we derived that collection from my old existing mission called Peabody Simple. When we derived this collection, we named the new version test01, but we have two missions within it named Peabody Simple Bish and Peabody Simple Night. Those names are the old names. They came from the old mission. And as a result, and these are the names that actually get displayed by the flight simulator. That's going to cause a little problem. Let me show that to you. I'm going to exit out of the mission editor, and we're actually going to fly the flight simulator for the first time in this series by double-clicking on aceshigh.exe. This will launch ACES High version 2.12.4, as you can see up here in the corner, version 2.12.4. And from the simulator, I'm going to make sure that I've, in the NDIL's terrain, which is the terrain where this mission is available, yes, I can see it has highlighted the NDIL's terrain from this list, so that's good. We're now going to go over to offline practice, which will load the NDIL's terrain, populate all of the bases, place me in the tower, load up the graphics and scenery, and get everything ready. And now that I'm in the NDIL's terrain, one of the things I can do is I can select practice missions. I'm going to click on this button that says practice missions. Here we go, click. Here's my list of available practice missions. And you can see there are some missions here that don't have anything to do with our discussion. But down here at the bottom, these four items should look familiar. Peabody Simple Bish, Peabody Simple Bish, Peabody Simple Night, Peabody Simple Night. You can see that it has duplicated the names of these two missions simply because I derived the new ones from the old ones. And at this point, I don't even know which is the new and which is the old. If I click on one of them, I can see, oh, this must be the old version because it has P-38s. This one must be the new version of the Bishop mission because it's got the Mustangs that we talked about. I named that mission Mustangs. Well, actually, no, we put the flight of Mustangs on that mission. I don't like the fact that those names are duplicated because it's confusing. So we're going to go back and change that by getting out of the flight simulator, cancel, quit, and quit. From our desktop, your Windows desktop would look similar. We'll go back to the mission editor by double-clicking on ahedmiss.exe. That fires up our mission editor. And we are now going to go and rename those missions. By right-clicking on this mission name, I get mission properties. Left-click on mission properties. Now I can change that. And instead of calling it Peabody Simple Bish, I'm going to name it something like PS-Mustangs. This reminds me that it derives from my Peabody Simple mission, but we'll be flying Mustangs here. And you may recall that we have a flight of Mustangs on that mission. There's also the other mission in this mission group is called Peabody Simple Night. I'm going to rename that one. Right-click on the mission name, left-click on mission properties, and we'll change it to PS-Zeeks. PS-Zeeks. Okay, with those renamed now, we should be able to fly this version of the mission. I'm going to save my work with File, Save, then exit out of the mission editor by clicking the X, and then restart the flight simulator by double-clicking on aceshigh.exe. Here comes once again ACES High, version 2.12 patch 4, as you can see up here in the upper left corner. And once again, I'm going to verify that we are in the ND Isles terrain. I can see that we are. So I'll fire that up with offline practice. The flight simulator goes to the disk drive, loads up the map, populates the map and bases, draws a picture of the tower, puts me in it, draws the scenery. After it settles down, I'm given the option to select from practice missions. Now I can see what I wanted to see. We have a new mission named PS Mustangs, a new mission named PS Zeeks, both of them derived from the Peabody Simple mission. Notice that this name is in alphabetical order. So it's a good idea to keep that in mind when you name your missions in the mission editor, that you want them grouped together. So you typically want them to start with the same letters so that they'll group together in this list. Let's fly this mission as a Mustang and just see what happens. We've been building this mission all along in our mission editor.
Gentlemen, today I will show you how I fly a very simple
I'm turning down
combat
the computer's
mission.
volume a little bit here.
From our airfield, head immediately
So this is the
in
briefing we
general
talked
direction
about.
toward
You can
the
see it's
nearest
working
enemy
as we had in
airfield.
mind.
Make one simple pass over the enemy area, then come on home. If we see enemy activity, we will engage them as we identify opportunities.
All right. That places it in a Mustang. I'm going to start my engines. And we can fly this mission. I want to look around. I can see the other aircraft in the group. They'll follow that. My airplane's this one here in the center. And
Bishop, waypoint 1.
you can hear those waypoint announcements that we talked about in the mission design. We can just follow along and this mission will go. I'm not going to fly the whole mission now. You have the option to do that yourself. If you've been following along, you can fly it yourself. I'm just going to end the mission. I'll bring up my clipboard and click end sortie. But that's something you need to know about how to manage groups of missions. And that concludes this tutorial. This is a simple one.